Well, last week, or this past week rather, was interesting. Ubisoft dropped the first cinematic trailer for Assassin's Creed Shadows, formerly known as Assassin's Creed Project Red, where we already knew it was going to be set in Japan. We knew that it was probably going to be two different characters that you'd be playing as, and that one of them would be a ninja, and more than likely the other a samurai. And now we know.
Now we
David,
know.
what do you think of the trailer that we saw?
Uh, it looked cool, I guess. It was entertaining. Ninjas, samurais, killing people. I'm not a huge Assassin's Creed fan, so I'm not nearly as excited about it as you are.
Fair enough. Do you think that for the first trailer there should have been actual gameplay involved? Because people are talking online right now and people are concerned and irritated that there wasn't a gameplay trailer that dropped.
Uh, I don't necessarily think it's a huge deal to have gameplay in your first trailer. The majority of times when games are first announced slash putting out, the first trailer does not necessarily contain gameplay. So like it's not a huge thing that it didn't have gameplay. If they don't release something within the next few weeks or whatever, because it's supposed to come out this year, right? November.
November 15th.
Right. So yeah, if they don't have something within the next month or two, I would say at the very least that shows gameplay, then I could understand like, hey, yo, what's up? But if you've got enough to make a nice fancy cinematic trailer like that, that wasn't really a teaser trailer. It was a full-on cinematic trailer. So you should have gameplay available pretty soon to show off to people.
Right. And with Ubisoft Forward coming up on June 10th, that's usually the time frame when gameplay is usually shown.
Yes, I would say that's probably the smart when they will do it
Because that's
for
when E3 used to happen.
yeah.
Now that E3 is gone, it's the
Oh,
Summer Game Fest showcases.
yeah.
I think I'll always call it E3 weekend, but
All those little showcases, that's probably when actual gameplay trailer will drop. If it doesn't, then I definitely understand the fans being like, yo, what the heck? Give me my gameplay footage. I need to know more about it than just your fancy cinematic stuff.
agreed. And for those watching, the map size has been announced that this will be on par with Assassin's Creed Origins, which took place in Egypt, and so we are not getting the whole map of Japan, but rather a more focused area of Japan.
Yeah, that makes sense. Japan's fairly large map to put into a video game. It's not impossible to do, obviously, but
Yeah, if memory serves, based on what I've heard from other people, Ghost of Tsushima used a larger portion of the Japanese map. This ain't Ghost of Tsushima. We also found out through the gameplay trailer, well, not game, the cinematic trailer. Wow, my brain is not working today. So again, based on the cinematic trailer, we also found out who our two main playable characters are. One is a female ninja, and the other is a male samurai. And there is controversy. People don't like that we are getting a historic figure for the samurai character.
it's not so much that it's a historic figure that they don't like. It's they could have picked a Japanese historic figure who was actually of Japanese heritage instead of the black guy, which I have no problem with black or African American characters at all. It's just from stuff that I was reading, people are like, yeah, he's a cool character, even though like the historical things on him is like he actually wasn't even technically a samurai. He was a servant of a samurai. Stuff like this is
I
some of the
mean,
stuff I've read about it recently in the last day or so.
what I've read about him is he actually did become a samurai, kind of. Like, he's more folktale
You know,
in Japanese lore
exactly.
than we know actual facts about him.
So yeah, like that in itself is enough. Like yeah, okay, he's more like you said folklore in Japanese culture than actual
But
historical
but we know
Japanese
he
stuff.
did exist.
Right, there's plenty of people that we know technically did exist, but what they actually did and stuff is up for debate.
Lost to history.
Lost to history, up for debate. I mean,
so yeah, they're also complaining that the other character is a female.
I mean, yeah, I mean, certain people will always complain about that. I have no problem with the female character.
Neither do I. I think this is going to prove really interesting.
But in a way,
from a design concept.
Right. Like, also, I can kind of see some of the complaints depending on the time period that this game is supposed to take place. Because, yeah, females have always been around, but they haven't always had the same rights and stuff as men in certain parts of the world.
That's true.
I'm no expert on history, let alone Japanese history and culture. So I don't know if that was a time period when women were expected to do, or not necessarily expected, but allowed, I guess would. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I also think it depended on where in Japan you were.
Like
region to region, like
supposed to be the
she's supposed to be. She's the fictional daughter of a ninja master whose name I forget at the moment.
Yeah.
Which is probably bad on me, but
it's in the trailer, which we will recap.
Yep. The trailer will be playing at some point during this video, so you'll be able to see it again.
Who are you? Who do you serve?
All I have ever known in my life. Our land. Our customs. My family. Burns in the name of unification.
Still a frog in a well, who knows nothing of the sea. The ocean's filled with new ships, but they all come from the same river. Greed. Power. Vengeance.
And you? Will you continue down that river? Or choose another path beyond what we see?
Then we must look for it together. We must learn to trust, rebuild.
And follow the blade.
Who do you serve? We are the shadows.
That served the light.
But again, we have a black male samurai. We have a female Japanese ninja. I don't see anything wrong with it.
I don't either. I'm just saying I understand some of the points of view of some of the people who are complaining about it. I'm not
I
saying
can
I
see
necessarily.
it.
Yeah, like I'm saying, I can see their point of view. I'm not necessarily saying I agree with their point of view, but I can see what their complaint is what I'm just trying to vocalize here.
Another viewpoint I have on it is,
No,
and I know we've discussed this before, and I've seen it talked about by others, having a foreigner being one of the main characters to the game, they're discovering Japan as we're discovering Japan.
Right.
And so I think that's going to bring a very interesting perspective compared to what all the other games have been.
Right. Like that, like in a way, like a little video that we watched about the two characters kind of went into that a little bit, and like that makes it make a little bit more sense than just saying, "Oh, here's to be this black samurai guy now." For like, so like, there's a logical reason why they chose that character. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So this game is already looking really interesting, and I have no problem with the setting, the time period, and the main characters that we know about so far.
Mm-hmm.
Something else I want to touch on
Don't touch things.
is some gameplay mechanics.
Well,
Throughout all of the games that I've played, at least, there's always been like a settlement or a hideout or basically a place to start your missions from.
that's not.
And in this one,
Kinda.
like with Valhalla, we're going to be able to customize it.
Cool. That's a plus for some people, not give a crap for others.
I agree. With Valhalla, the way they made it sounded really cool in concept, being able to customize it. But at the end of the day, everything was prefabbed, everything was preset in where it was going to be.
Right.
And you only got to customize a few cosmetics around your settlement, and even then, it was a cosmetic. You didn't really get to have full customization with where buildings were set up or anything else.
So you're saying you want something like, I know you probably didn't really ever play it, but the settlements in Fallout 4, where you could basically build stuff however you wanted using, you use prefab structure pieces, but you could like build units and houses and pick where you want defense turrets and stuff like that to go.
Exactly. Yeah. Something more like that, where, you're using prefabs, and you're given a preset container space, but you say your main house here, weapons depot here, maybe your quest pickup over there. Just something a little bit more. Like, that would be really cool. Like, that's sort of what they described the settlement in Valhalla being, but then it wasn't.
Right.
So, another mechanic and similarity I want to bring up is the grappling hook that we see the ninja using. This is not the first time we've had a grappling hook feature in Assassin's Creed.
Right.
The last time we had it, and I think the only other time we had it, was in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, where, again, we had, much like this game, a male and female character. Only in that game, both had access to a grappling hook. And in that game also, the physics behind the grappling hook made zero sense. Like, you could grapple basically anywhere, and it just carried you up, it carried you across streets, rooftop to rooftop. It was really weird the way it was set up.
So
Like-
they gave them web shooters like Spider-Man.
Basically.
Don't get me wrong. Doesn't make sense in Assassin's Creed game, but web shooters are fun.
So it looks like in Shadows, with the ninja character being the only character able to use it, it's also going to be more physics bound, with having certain points where you can use it, certain points where you can't. So it's
One-
not going to be a free for all.
One would hope at least, but you never know.
Like that's what the developers have already been talking about. So
Okay. I haven't been following, especially the developer diaries and shit like you have, so.
yeah. Well, not much has been said, but enough has been said that these are a few key things that they're doing.
Right.
Also, back in Syndicate, you had certain missions where it had to be one character or the other,
Mm-hmm.
where it was preset, you didn't have a choice.
Right.
Based on the trailer that we saw, and based on what's been said, it looks like you can use either character for missions,
Yeah.
unless it's a character-specific mission.
Yeah, I would imagine there's going to be, especially at the beginning of the game, probably character-specific stuff, where you're getting his side or her side or whatever, and then eventually when they kind of team up, because they obviously team up according to the trailer we saw, that you'll be able to pick which character you want to go on the missions with, is what it seemed like.
And it's going to be really interesting, seeing as each of them has their own style of combat, each one has their own style of approach,
Right.
and what works for one will not work for the other.
Well, one's stealth-based, and the other's the more combat
Brute
heavy.
force.
Brute force, the tank, as I like to call those kinds of characters in.
Yep.
From my RPG experience, yeah, it's not always the best idea to try to tank with a stealth type character.
Especially when it looks like they're treating the stealth character as they did with Basm in Mirage, where that game, you're not supposed to go into heavy combat. Like, you will get taken down very quickly unless you are evading and disappearing.
It's kind of the point of a stealth character. You don't want, what do they call it? Heavy combat stuff. You strike from the shadows. You actually want to be an assassin, not a big old guy walking down the street just swinging a hammer or whatever at everybody who comes your way.
Yeah. So, in this case, they already have the mechanics from Mirage that it looks like they're bringing in for the stealth character. And then the samurai character, it looks like they're bringing in the more heavy combat from Valhalla, which should be an interesting contrast. And I'm glad they're doing this as two separate characters rather than being like, oh, you can be a samurai or you can be a ninja all with the same character. Like, that would have been dumb. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. You don't want to make it where you can just run in with a ninja character and just survive everything super easily and all that kind of stuff. You want to keep some sense of realism. Otherwise, what's the point of having two different characters with two different play styles?
Well, that was one of the faults of Syndicate, was she was supposed to be more stealth, he was supposed to be more brute force, but they played mostly the same.
Alright, I imagine they will learn from their mistakes of that.
I hope so. Like, based on the cinematic trailer alone, that's looking a million times better. But only time will tell with gameplay. Speaking of which, something else they are boasting with this game is destructive environments, which we saw in the trailer.
Destructive environments are always fun. If they're
However, the way they're making such a big deal about this, I do not understand. because to a degree, we've had destructive environments going back to at least Syndicate, maybe a little further, where you could destroy park benches, you could destroy some of the fences in general, you could destroy lamps, like street lamps, you could, you know. And then the more ancient civilization games, pots were everywhere, you could destroy those. So I'm very curious to see the degree of destruction of the environments we get in this game. Like, for them to have that being a key feature, it better be big. Would you agree or disagree?
I would agree.
So, with that said, the last major thing that I've been seeing controversy around is the price tag.
Well, I mean, there's always controversy around video game price tags these days.
What I think most people who complain about them don't realize is how much work actually goes into these bigger games.
I think that's part of it, but the other part I agree with people complaining about is locking half the game behind a paywall with the special editions or the ultimate editions and all this kind of shit. Like, I agree with that. I hate the fact that so many game companies do that nowadays. Or all the bonus DLC stuff, as they call it, in the season pass or whatever. I'm like, just release the full game and then, yeah, at one point. Because I hate how they... And it's definitely not just Ubisoft, not just Assassin's Creed. It's pretty much every major AAA game.
It's every
nowadays.
developer.
Yeah. Every AAA game nowadays does it, and I hate that. I'm like, especially considering most of the time the DLCs are not like, yeah, they call them expansions or whatever, but they're not like full-on expansions that add that much more gameplay.
I will say this, in the case of Assassin's Creed, speaking to Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, the expansions you get in the season pass for those 3 games is indeed worth it, because you get a lot more content and a lot more stories to play through.
Right.
With Origins, you got 2. They weren't full-size maps, like they weren't the size of the base game map, but it was a good, about maybe a third of the original map for each expansion. And then within the confines of the second expansion for that game, you got like a handful of mini maps extra.
Yes, but how
Because you're
much of
going
it-
through the underworld, basically. And each tomb you went to had its own underworld. So you had a handful of extra maps and content. So that made that worth it.
Yes, but how much
Odyssey,
how much overall hours of gameplay did you get out of those if you're just not necessarily rushing through it, but just playing it and not just on replays, just as for one play? How much extra playtime did it add?
it's hard for me to tell. I know others who are basically Assassin's Creed gaming professionals
Yeah,
would run through those things in...
yeah, I'm not talking about like the speedrunners or people that just rush through it.
No, I'm
just
not talking about
for-
speedrunners. No, I'm
I'm-
talking about
Yeah, I'm just talking
the
about.
casual player, but are still AC,
Okay.
quote-unquote AC professional. They'd run through them maybe 15 to 20 hours
So depending on
per DLC expansion.
so depending on how much you play, maybe a week's worth.
Yeah. And at, say, $40 for the season pass, that's basically what an older game would have been
Yeah.
if you stop and think about it. So it's priced, at least with Ubisoft, they price it relatively well. With Odyssey, their DLC expansions, the first one, they reused the base game assets and map and all that, but new stories, which I know many people did not appreciate.
Yeah, that sounds like a meh expansion to me.
But
Depending on
then the second one
depending on
came
how
with
good the
3
story
different
is.
maps.
Yeah, and it's also not always just like new maps that makes it so like as you said with the one that was just like new stories. I'm like it depends on the missions and if it's a compelling story and all that kind of stuff, which as you say a bunch of
Yeah,
people apparently did not appreciate it or didn't like it that much. So,
it wasn't as good. It didn't hold up as well.
right.
But then the second one, the story was great. Then you got 3 new maps with great stories in each one, and it was an overall great experience and well worth the price. And then Valhalla, you got 2 DLCs within the season pass, which each came with 1 map per, but those maps were each really, really large. So we're talking, I'd say about, again, a third of the original map. And that map was a lot bigger than even Origins. So,
The question with this then, like, okay, it was large. They were large. Okay, so they were large and wide, but how deep were they? Kind of a thing. Like, just because it's a big map doesn't mean it's a good expansion either.
right. There's a lot of activities to do in each one.
Yeah, and like I
And
said,
there's replayability with each one.
right, and for different types of players, they will find different things like they care about in those kinds of things. Like for a player like me, I like extra lore and story and stuff being added in. Other people just like
Yes.
I want just the new armors, the new stuff. Other people are just like I just want to beat it as fast as I can so I can get my little trophy for
There's
whatever.
something for everyone.
Yeah, like
There's something for everyone.
I am not knocking anyone's play style, and like as I say, this I'm talking for this with like all games and their season passes or DLCs. I'm not concentrating solely on Assassin's Creed stuff for this, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's like I will admit, Skyrim, one of my favorite games of all time. It
Your favorite. Absolute favorite. It's the top of your
yes,
list.
but I'm saying
We
like
all know it.
one of the things about it is yeah, it's a very large, expansive world, and just the Elder Scrolls in general, not just Skyrim. But one of the major complaints is yeah, it's very large and wide, but it's not very deep. Like, and like I can understand that, but for the people who actually do go into and read all the lore and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, it's deeper than the average person thinks it is.
Yeah. There's a lot of that kind of depth to the 2 Valhalla expansions as well.
Right.
So, again, was it worth the $40 price tag? Yes. So, in this case of Shadows,
So,
if the base game itself is good,
yeah.
and they follow suit with compelling DLC in the season pass, I pray right now that that $40 price tag will be worth it.
Like that's like the one thing I will say I don't necessarily like about the season pass or whatever or the they have it the ultimate and the special editions or whatever they're calling it that they're releasing right now on November 15th. Like okay, if they're good expansions it'll be worth it, but if they wind up being sucky expansions you're going to feel like you wasted your money kind of a thing. So
Yes,
like
that is a risk you run.
it's a catch-22 kind of a situation. So I'm like that's one of the reasons me personally, no matter what game it is, I never buy those, ultimate editions with the season pass beforehand kind of a thing. I won't say never, but very rarely will I.
Another risk you run is we didn't even get the first DLC expansion for Valhalla for almost a year after the game release. So you may have pre-ordered it and all that, and you won't know for a year, 6 months to a year after the game releases, if the first expansion is worth it or not.
Yeah. Then they
So already the base price for the game is $70 US. The gold edition is 110. The ultimate edition is 130.
But don't forget, you get the 3 days early with those 2 editions.
Also, we do have more info on the ultimate pack.
Yeah.
It comes with 2 distinct armor sets. Well, gear sets, I should say.
Yeah.
It looks like we are indeed getting mounts back. We are losing the bird that we used in the last last 4 titles. Yeah. Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, Mirage. So we are losing the bird, which basically acted as a scouting drone
Mm-hmm.
/ replaced the original Eagle Vision. So we're actually getting the classic Eagle Vision back.
Nice.
So you'll be able to see around walls or see through them and get enemies marked and all that sort of stuff. But again, we're ditching the bird. We're getting our mounts.
Bye bye birdie.
So this ultimate pack will come with a bird, a mount, the 2 character packs, a hideout pack, 5 skill points. Whoa, so excited. That's as good as the 3 days early access. As well as a red dragon photo filter.
Wow, that's so stupid.
I mean, photo filters. Yes, I am all for in-game photography, as many people will know, but paying extra for a filter? Nah. The other content in here? Sure, but that? No.
So
Because
that's kind of what I meant by like saying they're like hiding certain features behind a paywall kind of a thing. Even a stupid feature like that should be included in all versions of the game. You know, like, okay, you've got photo filters. Why does this one get locked behind the paywall? It's just certain things like that I just have issues with.
Now let me give you a little perspective. So we're talking $70, $110, then $130.
Yeah, but basically,
And with $130, that's
doubling the
$20 for the ultimate pack.
Yeah.
Now then, for context, when Valhalla first came out, they were selling in the Ubisoft store, Helix shop, whatever they called it. They sold armor packs and settlement packs, so you could decorate your settlement if you wanted with, again, the preset locations for customization, and then your armor packs. And the settlement pack was like $10, and the armor pack, which came with, wow, I can't talk today. 1 armor set, a mount, 2 weapons, and a bird skin.
wow, birds.
So now we get for $20 a hideout pack, which I'll call settlement pack, well, the equivalent to,
Yeah, it's the same thing.
as well as a double armor pack, which has unique armor for each character. It looks like you get the same weapon for both characters, as well as a mount. So that, in Valhalla money, is $30 worth of content for $20. So already that is a huge, well, a good size savings.
Right.
Because we know Ubisoft is going to be selling all sorts of gear in their store. Like, that's just a given. It's Ubisoft.
Yeah. It's like EA, microtransactions.
They're going to milk their games as much as they can. So, another way you can play this game is if you play with Ubisoft Plus, which is their monthly subscription, which is on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox.
Well, PlayStation has Ubisoft Plus Classic, which is not the full Ubisoft Plus. So it's
Oh,
a little
Elm's
different.
Classic?
Yes. So I don't know.
So you may or may not gain access to this game on that.
Probably not right away. I was looking at it because I do have a PS5. I don't subscribe to Ubisoft Plus or anything on my PlayStation, but it does have pretty much all the Assassin's Creed up to Valhalla games on there. There might be a couple of the smaller ones I don't know about because, like, I mean, I don't know every Assassin's Creed game. I'm not a huge following of all their games. They've come out with so many these days. So, but I know they had 1, 2, 3, 4, Black Flag or whatever that one was, Origins,
They had
Odyssey,
one-
and Valhalla were on there. Plus all the Chronicles ones where they had a bunch of different.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
I'm sure they had the
Syndicate
whole.
and all those were on there too.
Yeah, I'm sure they also had the whole Ezio trilogy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all the Ezio stuff was on there.
Because he had number 2, Brotherhood and Revelations.
Yeah, I'm actually installing Revelations on my Xbox right now. If it plays more like the older Assassin's Creed 1 and 2 type of stuff, I will like it more. Like,
It will.
that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons I kind of stopped playing the Assassin's Creed game is they kind of branched out away from like the Assassin's side of it kind of thing.
Well, that's what they're sort of returning to in Mirage.
Right. And so like
It was a smaller, more focused, and from what I understand, that's also sort of what they're doing with the ninja character in Shadows.
for me that's what I loved about especially 1 and 2 because those were the ones I played the most was, the parkour, which at the time was pretty revolutionary. Now it's in just about every game ever.
Oh, yeah.
But at the time it was pretty cool the way they did it. Like the assassinations and you have to
Yep.
actually plan out and use stealth to accomplish your missions instead of just being like, oh well, I fucked up, I can fight my way out of here anyway kind of a situation.
I feel like peak parkour was Unity.
Yeah, I think I
Like,
played that.
that's the one game everyone, it seems, in the community agrees had the best parkour.
Parkour. Cool.
But getting back on track here, so we've gone over the price, we've gone over all the other major things that people have had issues with this past week since the trailer debuted and the info has started to come out. Again, I want to remind everyone, June 10th will be Ubisoft Forward, and one way or another, we will be live streaming and reacting to it. Whether it's both of us or just me is yet to be determined.
Yeah, I will like to participate, but I have recently acquired a new job, so I will depend on my
A
availability.
second job. Well, everyone, thank you for sticking around for another interesting video. Expect more content soon, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace out, homies!